Hello Libra, Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus, and welcome to my channel. My name is Mucha. So Libra, today we're going to go over your energy as well as your person's energies. With all that being said, let's get started. It's Elise. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something. This reading isn't going to tell you what to do. I can't make that decision for you. But what I can do is give you information you need to make that decision from the clearest possible place. Information about what's actually happening with this person. Information about what another chance really means. Information about what you need to look for to determine if this is real or just another chapter of the same story. They want another chance, and you need to know why. Not the why they're telling you, the actual why underneath the words. Because people come back for different reasons, and only some of those reasons lead to different outcomes. Let me break down what I'm sensing about why they're returning. And as I go through these, pay attention to which one resonates as true for your situation. Possibility one is they've genuinely changed. And I want to start with this one because it is possible. People can grow. People can do real work on themselves. People can become capable of things they weren't capable of before. But genuine change has markers, and you need to know what to look for. If they've genuinely changed, they're not just saying they've changed. They're showing you evidence. They've been in therapy consistently, not just a session or two after you left, but sustained work over time. They've made changes in their life that demonstrate different priorities. They can articulate specifically what they did wrong. Not in vague terms like, I know I messed up, but with clarity about their actual behavior, the impact it had, and why it happened. They take full accountability without deflecting or making excuses. They don't say things like, I was going through a lot, as if that erases their responsibility. They own what they did. And here's the big one. They're not rushing you. They're willing to move at whatever pace feels safe for you. They're not pressuring you to decide immediately or making their emotional well-being your responsibility. If you're seeing those markers, genuine change is possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. Possibility two is they're lonely and you're familiar. This is harder to admit, but incredibly common. They left or created distance, thinking they'd find something better or that being alone would feel liberating. And instead they found that dating is harder than they remembered, or being alone is lonelier than they anticipated. So they're coming back not because they've realized your specific value, but because you're a known quantity. You're comfortable, you're safe. And the danger of this is that nothing has actually changed about why it didn't work before. They haven't addressed the core issues. They're just tired of dealing with the consequences of walking away. If this is why they're back, you'll notice their approach is about relieving their discomfort, not about honoring your hurt. They might minimize what happened, act like enough time has passed that you should just move on. Focus on the good memories rather than addressing the painful ones. This version doesn't lead anywhere good, because the moment being with you becomes uncomfortable again, or the moment someone new and exciting appears, they'll leave again. What makes you think they want you specifically versus just wanting to not be alone? Possibility three is they're having a moment of clarity that won't last. Something happened that made them temporarily see what they lost. Maybe they saw you with someone else or heard you were doing well. Maybe they're going through something difficult and they remember that you were supportive. Maybe a significant date or anniversary triggered nostalgia. And in that moment, they genuinely feel like they want you back. The feeling is real. The clarity is real. But it's a spike, not a sustained shift. And once the triggering event passes, once the emotion settles, they'll revert to whoever they were before. This is the version where they come back intense and passionate. Everything feels urgent and significant. They're sure this time. But give it 2 weeks, a month, and the intensity fades. And you're back where you started, except now you've reopened the wound. If their return coincides with something specific in their life, a loss or a scare or seeing you move on, be cautious. Ask yourself if they're responding to the circumstance or if this is a real evolution. Possibility 4 is they need something from you. And I don't necessarily mean they're being intentionally manipulative. But sometimes people come back because they need emotional support or validation or help with something practical, and they frame it as wanting another chance because that's more palatable than admitting they need something. Maybe they're going through a rough time and they remember you're a good listener. Maybe they need their ego soothed and they know you care about them. Maybe they're facing consequences of choices they made and they need someone who'll be gentle with them. If this is what's happening, you'll notice the conversation focuses heavily on their struggles, on what they're going through, on how hard things have been for them. And there's less focus on what they put you through, less curiosity about how you've been, less interest in your healing beyond whether you've healed enough to be available to them again. This version uses the language of reconciliation to get access to your support without actually offering the changed behavior that reconciliation requires. Possibility 5 is they don't want you, but they don't want anyone else to have you either. This one is painful but real. Some people come back not because they want to be with you, but because the thought of you being with someone else is intolerable to them. So they keep you in orbit. They come back just enough to maintain your hope. They give you just enough attention to keep you emotionally invested. But if you actually said yes to another chance, if you actually tried to define the relationship and move forward, they'd create distance again. Because they don't want the relationship, they want the option. This version shows up cyclically. They leave, you start to move on, they sense it and come back. You engage, they have you again, they pull away. Repeat. If you've been through this cycle before with this person, if there's a pattern of them returning whenever you start to let go, that's your answer. They're not coming back for a real chance. They're coming back to reset the cycle. Have you noticed a pattern of them only wanting you when you're moving on? Now let me talk about what you need to know beyond their motivations. You need to know what giving another chance actually costs you. It's not free. It's not a neutral decision. Saying yes to another chance means investing more time, more emotional energy, more vulnerability into something that already hurt you once. And if it doesn't work out again, the cost is cumulative. It's not just the original hurt plus this new hurt. It's the original hurt, this new hurt, and the additional damage of having hoped when you knew better. So before you say yes, you need to be honest about whether you can actually afford that cost. Not financially, emotionally, psychologically. Can you handle it not working again? Can you survive that level of disappointment? Or would it fundamentally break something in you that's already fragile? If the answer is that you're not sure you could survive it failing again, then you might not be in a position to give another chance right now, regardless of whether they've changed. you also need to know what your non-negotiables are. If you're going to give another chance, it can't be on the same terms as before. What would need to be different, not what would be nice to be different. What absolutely has to be different for this to be viable. Maybe it's therapy for them or for both of you. Maybe it's specific behavioral changes. Maybe it's transparency about things that were hidden before. Maybe it's them doing real work to address whatever made them leave or hurt you in the first place. Get clear on those requirements before you have the conversation, and then communicate them clearly, not as ultimatums designed to control them, but as boundaries that protect you, as conditions that need to be met for you to feel safe trying again. And then watch what they do with those requirements. Do they accept them and start demonstrating change? Or do they push back, minimize them, try to negotiate them down? Their response to your boundaries will tell you everything you need to know about whether they're serious. You also need to know that taking them back doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. You're not required to just move on and act like everything's fine because they apologized. If you give another chance, you're allowed to still be hurt, still be processing, still need time to rebuild trust. And if they're genuinely changed, they'll understand that. They'll be patient with your healing process. They won't rush you to get over it just because they're ready to move forward. But if they expect you to immediately return to how things were before, if they get frustrated with you for not trusting them completely right away, that's a red flag. That's someone who wants forgiveness without consequences. What would they need to do consistently over time to rebuild your trust? Now let me address the most important thing. You need to know that you're allowed to say no. Even if they have changed, even if they're genuinely different, is less than #0. 5# is greater than. Even if everything they're saying is true and their intentions are pure, you're still allowed to say no, because maybe you've changed too. Maybe you've grown past what this relationship can offer even in its best form. Maybe the person you're becoming doesn't fit with who they are, even the improved version. Or maybe you're just done, and done doesn't need elaborate justification. You're allowed to decide that regardless of whether they've changed, you don't want to go back. That the door is closed not because they're not worthy, but because you've moved on. And if you make that choice, you don't owe them another chance just because they want one. Their desire to try again doesn't obligate you to agree. They want another chance. But you need to know this. Another chance only works if the underlying conditions have changed. If they've done real work. If you're emotionally resourced enough to try again. If the relationship has something new to offer beyond nostalgia and familiarity. And even then, it's not guaranteed. People can do work and still not be right for each other. People can change and the relationship can still not work. So, if you're going to try, go in with your eyes open, with clear boundaries, with requirements that must be met, with the understanding that this is a new relationship, not a continuation of the old one. And if you decide not to try, if you decide the cost is too high, or you're simply done, honor that decision. Don't let guilt or their disappointment override what you know is right for you. They want another chance. But whether they get one is entirely up to you. And whatever you decide, make sure it's from your strongest, clearest, most self-honoring place. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to really consider what another chance means instead of just reacting. And thank you for valuing yourself enough to require real change, not just promises of it. I'll see you in the next one.